I'm sorry? Because I was not sure how long that was going to go on, we stopped the Zoom meeting. Having disinvited the public, we could not take action at the end of the meeting. The school district does, they let the Zoom go on for however long. You get a card that says, we'll be back shortly. And I didn't want to keep Mike around and everybody else. So the one action item that comes out of that executive session was the agreement that we were going to increase the library director's salary by 3%. Now, and this is retroactive to the effective date of the 2020 staff. I'm sorry, Joyce, you're muted.
It was 3.5.
Yeah, that's what I remember too.
It was
Okay.
3.5%.
Okay.
Does everyone agree that it was 3.5?
Yes.
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 Okay. Two other pieces that were there was the effective date, rather than make it effective today, which is halfway through the year, or try to make it retroactive to the beginning of the year, we're going back to the date where we made the staff increases effective. And that was someplace in between. And to make life simple, we're going to do that retroactive portion in a single check. And then the rate will go on. The reason I want to do that is because if you get to the end of the year and the salary base appears to have that retroactive in it because it has not only the increase but the back pay, it gets confusing when you look at next year's evaluation and potential for salary adjustment. And these, I mean, everything is debatable. Joyce, I'm glad you caught me on that. So Megan, you have that, it's 3.5%. Are there any other comments? All right, would someone please move that? Joyce, and Anitris, will put you down for the second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Thank you. Now, everybody received this in an email form, is that correct? From Joyce directly. That's the multiple page evaluation tabulation. It's not just the evaluation, but it's the notes and then the cumulative grade on the side. If we accept this, what we are also accepting is what's on in the next to the last page, which is areas of the priorities for the director over the next year. That's, I mean, they go together. And I think, Joyce, correct me if I'm wrong, but your intention in doing the tabulation was so that we did not have a discussion about every individual part and what's the difference between an S plus and an S. Your tabulation took that into account, includes a summary of the comments that were received, and then also in italics, like whatever the other print is, there are Betty Sue's comments about the same thing. So you can see where we are. So what I'm looking for is to just accept this. Joyce, did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me.
Unmute again.
There we go. Okay.
In doing the tabulation, like I said, when I sent it out, if there were two extremes, I tried to find a medium. So no one person really got everything that they wanted. No one person did. In an effort to be fair, because it's like looking at the parts of an elephant, you know, and I can't say what you said wasn't true. So I'm hoping that if anyone found it, that they couldn't agree with it, that they would have called me and spoken with me about any particular area. That being said, I do think that going forward, it should be a lot easier because you're really only going to be dealing with 1 year and not trying to cram feelings for multiple years into one document, because that's not fair. And so that's my comment on it. And I would like for, you know, I hope that everyone would like to move forward with this so that we can, you know, be there to support Betty Sue going forward as our director.
Then Joyce, are you comfortable moving that the trustees accept this document?
Yes, I would like to ask that the trustees accept that document with signatures and that it be presented by you to Betty Sue on our behalf.
Okay.
So Kevin,
Yeah.
can I ask a question?
Yes.
So is it my understanding, so this evaluation has not been shared with Betty Sue to this date?
That is correct. And that was a decision that I made, that I did not want her to be part of the conversation for the document. The conversation after the document, yes. Are we comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Would someone like to second Joyce's action? I'm sorry, Betty Sue, did you have a question?
Nope.
No, okay. Would someone like to second that?
I'll second Debbie.
Debbie seconds it. Is there any other conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Thank you. Now,
I would like to thank Mrs. Riley for all the time she put into doing both, the initial and the compilation of everything. It took a lot of time and a lot of thought, and thank you for doing that.
absolutely. Let me just suggest that as you are planning next year, whoever the next president is, this is supposed to be done in October or November so that if necessary, it can be part of the mechanism for adjusting salaries. It is not the board's, not the trustees' responsibility to evaluate line staff. That's what you pay the
No.
director to do. So
No,
although
I
we
think that's
could
clear.
design what we thought we wanted to have in terms of information on it, it still becomes her. Then the following point is we each need to do a self-evaluation and a group evaluation, not individually. He did. But I think I participated and this is how. I think the board did or didn't participate and this is how. Really should only be a page or a page and a half. There are sample metrics to use. I will absolutely tell you that the last one we used as this group, we do not want to use. It was not very effective in what it was. What we want to do is say, where do we have strengths and where do we have things that need to be shorn up? And if we have 3 people that need boardsmanship training, that's supposed to come up there rather than, I think what we've been doing is being reactive. Niagara does the training and Gloria signs up for every Niagara training there is. And Linda tries to go to them, but it's not a systematic process and it needs to be. So, yes, you can beat me and say, well, you haven't done that for the last 7 years. You're absolutely right. But I'm afraid I was in the situation of I was choosing my battles. So you get another president you can pick on for a while. Are there other questions about evaluations, that sort of stuff? Okay, there are a couple of things just as preliminary to it. The principal purpose of this meeting was to determine what we're going to do for an annual meeting. But before we do that, if we can just have Betty Sue a quick review of the election day preparations, the execution, and the cleanup. Now, really, except for the fact that we were in COVID, they've done that before. Same people have been here, that sort of thing. Were there any concerns that were expressed by library patron staff from your standpoint?
No. The only concern we had this year where we had to make a couple of adjustments was the fact that Charlene Bloom, who works for the library, has always been one of the poll watchers. So we just depended on Charlene to see the doors were opened and closed and take care of that stuff. And she was not able to do that this year. So we had to take it on. And of course, it was a little different. I guess the town must have decided they needed to mark off outside because I came in one day and it was all marked off. But by the time elections started, those had been ripped off by probably neighborhood kids. But it really didn't affect what went on inside the building because nobody was that close to each other. It was spaced out enough. They had a greeter at the door, the southernmost door into the Curtis room. As the person approached, they sprayed both hands with disinfectant, handed them a pen. They then went and retrieved their ballots, went over to their spots, voted, and when they turned the ballots back in, they put their pen in a bag, and then the pens were all cleaned so that they could be used again. When I was up talking with them, everything seemed to be going very smoothly. And I know Kevin was here and checked on them, and I don't know if anybody else from the board stopped in or voted that day, but I thought it went very smoothly. And when I spoke to elections both before and after, they just always tell us we're their best spot. So
Well, that's a good thing.
ourselves on the back.
I actually voted about 10 o'clock, and it's usually relatively busy, and and it was not. I did not, I stood one step back or 1 6-foot length back and waited for the person ahead of me. They indicated that in District 4 in the Village of Albion, where I live, they had a tremendous number of absentees, so they did not expect a lot of people for that particular one. However it works, that's fine. Dan, you were here, everything seemed to be okay? All right, and the only reason I bring that up is because I think that is germane to the conversation about library reopening and what we can do for that. So Betty Sue, as I understand it, per the last trustee meeting, you've been working with a 3-person committee and you just kind of bounce ideas off them, keep the information, keep the information up to date about what the best practice is and that sort of thing. Is that fair?
The first step that we made, I had sent out the whole packet with all of the reopening plans. Those plans are still in place because they will not change. The only thing we will be doing is adding to them as we move through other steps. We will still keep in place the sanitary hand wiping at the doors. We have the same by the bathroom doors. Of course, I have sung Joyce's praises every single day and have told everybody to order this stuff because it is fabulous.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled with it. The people who have come in have been very happy. I think I sent you last week when I was looking for permission to move ahead with this week, that we had started with 25 people and then it dropped to like 17. And then on Friday, we moved all the way up to 39. And then Monday, we had 41. And tonight, before I went home for dinner, we were at 39 or 40 then. So I don't know how many more came in. We're finding that we do a nice business at 1 o'clock. It'll be fairly steady from there till 3, maybe 4. Then it dies right off at the 4:30 hour. Then we might get a few in at 5, but nobody comes in after 5:30. Yes, Dan, you're on, okay.
Just want to say for Betty Sue and the employees, you guys have done a phenomenal job, and thank you for keeping everybody clean and keeping everything tight here. And on my behalf, I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I am absolutely thrilled with how smoothly it's gone. I think the staff has been very comfortable with it. As I said, we have one person that we don't want out with the public. So that person works back here, and that's fine. Dirk has been in. He would like to return to work, but he's going through health issues. He's going to call me next week, and we're going to see if we can find a place for him to come back in because he's lost without it. And so this is as much for the employee benefit as it is for anybody else's. At this time, I would not recommend moving the hours to stay open any later. It just begins to fall off. I thought Ace was closing at 6, but I noticed the last couple nights they've had cars there after 6 o'clock. But if they're closed at 6, that also makes everything look closed at 6. When we're going to need to move that to a later time that we stay open will be once we start taking reservations in the meeting rooms, because that is why we get people coming in at night, because there's programming and people will come in and bring their kids or their mother or something. We also have had people pick up books with the what are we calling it? Library to go, or what other libraries are calling the curbside delivery. We're still doing that, and people are really tickled. I had a woman stop me yesterday because her mother had just had a stroke, and she wants to try and get her in here. But she says, once I get her back to the library and she gets some books, she said, I think we'll take advantage of having you do the deliveries into the vestibule. So I think that'll be an ongoing thing that we can provide, that service. I see no reason not to. Charlene has made a couple of deliveries to the shut-ins, but the whole service has not been brought up to speed yet because most of the people participating don't want it. They're very concerned about having people come into their homes and whatever. So she and I will keep talking, and she's done a terrific job of talking with them and finding out. We will no longer take books to the nursing home. We were taking books that had been donated anyway because we never got them back. But now, with all the restrictions on entering the nursing home, we don't want to do that. Now, that being said, I'm going to reach out to them and say, is there some way we can put together books and somebody can stop and pick them up and take them or whatever? We're more than happy to do that. But some of the locations, they're not ready to have the deliveries yet. Northwood was a little bit of a problem, and the old grammar school. So we'll keep working with the institutions and see what we can do. So please, if you hear of anybody who needs this service or wants more information, tell them to send an email to us, and we'll see that they get what they need. If we were going to extend hours, I would recommend that you do it on the early end, that we would open earlier rather than stay open later. I don't know that it would increase the people flow yet, but we get more people when we first open. So that would be my recommendation. And I will send out an email on either Thursday or Friday to the committee and telling you what I would prefer to do. And then you can tell me if that is acceptable, at which point I'll send it out to the staff and the rest of the board. Any questions?
I have only anecdotal reports. Dee Wolf, who has been a library patron for probably 80 years, because she grew up across the street, was tickled pink that she could come in the library and made a point to tell us at church that she was pleased with the sanitation and the process and the procedure. She picked up right away. I don't know if she uses the self-checkout, but she picked up right away that it was moved so that provides social distancing for the people that are working behind the desk and you're not near each other. I mean, she's very perceptive and picked that stuff up. Harriet Greaser, same way. Very glad that she could send somebody to pick things up for her now, because after all, the selection is an important part to her.
Yeah,
so I for some reason I don't get a lot of people to call up and say, and has anybody else had any feedback? So let's just keep going like we're going, and we're going to ramp up as it becomes necessary. Okay, all right. So now, folks, the date of the annual meeting. So we have to determine the date. What we're actually going to do on that day, and whether we're going to have the 7 p.m. annual meeting or just have the voting. We do have 5. They are petitions, but they're notices of intent to run. You have to tell me whether I'm going to get the big basket out and draw those names for position on the ballot, or whether we do them alphabetically, or, I mean, for example, in the school board election that just was, normally the day after your petitions are due, there's a draw, and they draw it. I think that just got run by the wayside because there was so much going on, and we get listed alphabetically. And so, I mean, we can do whatever you want to do. Terry, you had the presentation last month about scheduling the annual meeting. I'm inclined to think that we're going to be into phase 4. We haven't had 25 people in an annual meeting in years. And if we socially distance them, we certainly have room down here to do that. Where are you on this?
I guess following what the governor said, currently for elections, even though it'll be after July 1st, I think I just recommend we go by alphabetic order. And I think for the annual meeting, based on what I've read, is that we can have it in person and have it available on Zoom as well, particularly the meeting in the evening. And then, you know, like you say, we don't tend to get a lot of people, and if we social distance, we'll be in very good shape.
So your intention with the Zoom is to just broadcast it.
Right.
We're not going to do, you know, motions from the floor and that sort of thing.
No.
Long ago, when we were in the other building, it may have been the first or second or third time Terry was on the board, but it was when I was relatively new to it. Annual meetings went on forever. They were contentious, and we kind of did away with that when we did the selection process or the pre-qualification process. At the time I started on the board, it was possible to be nominated from the floor. They nominated people who weren't at the meeting and couldn't serve. It was a disaster. And especially having come into this building, I mean, we usually get cookies and punch for 50 people, and they have it for 3 or 4 days thereafter in the employee lounge. It would seem as though we could do what we normally do, which is we open the annual meeting at 12 noon, we recess immediately, and they vote all day. It's a ballot, you mark, you drop it in. We may have to have staff sit next to the box or put the box someplace, because I'm not sure how up to speed the friends are now or will be then. But then at 7 o'clock, the voting is over, and we do the reports, and as soon as the annual meeting is over, then you guys reorganize, choose your officers for the coming year. Do you have it? I'm sorry?
I talked to Kathy Moore today. I just happened to run into her. And she said the Friends would be able to man the ballot box, and they just make sure that they social distance and use a face mask. And I said, well, everybody that comes into the library has to be wearing a face mask, so that shouldn't be a problem either for you guys. So
kind of automatic. Okay, well, that'd be great. So how comfortable are the rest of you with, I mean, one of the reasons I want to do it this way is I want to return to normalcy as much as we can. I sure don't want to go through an absentee ballot for the library. I mean, I don't know, Linda, it hasn't been released and it's none of my business, but I have to believe it costs thousands of dollars to send all those out and then get all the complaints about, I didn't get one, I got 12. That stuff. If we could avoid that, I think that would be preferable.
that was the selection of July 2nd because the governor's executive order went until July 1st. So if we're after July 1st, we should be all right unless he changes. And that's why I wanted the special meetings in case things changed.
Right. That's why we didn't do it at the last meeting, because we thought something might have changed along the way. Joyce, did you have your hand up for a comment?
I did. I guess maybe once we set the date, then maybe we can talk about how we're going to publicize this so that we can get people. I know we have the sign outside and we have our website, but maybe we should consider putting something in the on the hub and in the penny saver, because the time frame is going to be very short in between the date we pick from now.
That's true. We Betty Sue, I'm sure we can certainly do that, but we also have a mailing list now of emails that people have volunteered to give us, which we can use as a blast and say, hey, by the way, COVID slowed us down, but it's time for our meeting. Dan?
So if we have 5 people running, basically all 5 are going to be on the board anyway, because we elect 3, then the school board's going to need to appoint somebody in the village. So we're basically looking at all 5 that are going to be running are going to be on the board anyway. It's just a matter of how long their term is, correct?
Who are the 5?
Anitris and Dan,
And Joyce.
Joyce, Carol Miller, and Allison DeBoard, who lives on West Park Street, Gary Withy's daughter, who has her master's of school librarianship, who lives around the corner. So those are the 5. I'm not sure, Dan, that it's automatic because you never know how the elections work.
Exactly.
You're right, we don't have write-ins, but I'm not sure what the appointing people will do, and it's really none of my business. So yes, you're right. We do have to run the election because we have to, it's, as Terry pointed out, we have vacancies of varying lengths of my full year term, and then Maurice's, which is a 4, and then, so yes, the election has to be run. Are we comfortable with just doing them alphabetically?
I am.
I am.
Well, if Joyce is happy, she's at the bottom, so.
Yeah, I'm happy. You know, what will
That's
be,
good.
will be.
Okay, so choose a date. If we follow the practice that we've been doing, the regular trustee meeting will be the 2nd Wednesday of July, that's the 8th. The first Monday, that's the Monday after the 4th, the 6th, that will probably be the school board meeting. Do you want to do it the previous week? I mean, going back to the bylaws, it's supposed to be the first Monday in May, but obviously we can't do that.
Really, the 2 choices come down to either July 2nd or July 6th, which the 2nd is Thursday. My concern is, as Joyce said, there's just not a lot of time to get the word out. The 3rd is actually the day we're observing. I found out later, this week that that's the date that they're observing July 4th. And so it leaves the 6th and the 7th. And the 7th seems like a very short turnaround time for new slate of officers to get prepared for the meeting, setting up an agenda and that kind of thing.
Can
So
we,
how come, I'm sorry, go ahead.
how about, can we do it like the 15th?
We can do it anytime you want.
I mean, I want to give enough time for everything to run its due course and people have a chance to get the word out. And
Well, we could, for example, instead of having our regular meeting on the 8th, have that be the annual meeting date, and then have the 15th be the meeting of the reorganized people who will be elected that time. That gives us an extra week to do our advertising. It gives a week, I mean, the July board meeting normally doesn't have a lot of stuff on it. So there's not a lot of orientation and uptake that would have to be had, but that wouldn't get us too far off schedule. And then you go back to the 2nd Wednesday in August. Or not.
Oh, just a question. Are Tuesdays out of the question, or just not something we'd consider?
No, the only reason I thought, and maybe it's just in my mind, that one day wasn't enough turnaround time, but that could be my anal retentiveness and have nothing to do with reality.
Well, we're trying to work it into what our regular schedule is. This is a COVID year, so we don't have to do much of anything. I mean, we have to have an annual meeting. And if we get into September or October, we're going to run out of the COVID excuse. So our responsibility as elected fiduciaries is kind of called into question. But it doesn't have to be that first week. I would be uncomfortable having it much before the 1st of July, because literally that's that week.
Okay, does everybody have a calendar?
yep,
I have.
Why don't we just take a look at our calendar and let's see what we can come up with. Toss out 2 or 3 dates that we can select.
Well, then for the purposes of discussion, let me just throw out How about we have the annual meeting on Wednesday, the 8th, and your first trustee meeting is Wednesday, the 15th?
And the voting would occur on what date? The 7th?
No, on the 8th itself.
The 8th? Okay, on a Wednesday?
I mean,
I'm okay with, is there any other date anyone else would like to throw out there besides the 8th?
I try and keep the Wednesdays free for these, so that's only my calendar, and obviously I have school board meetings all the time now. So for me, because of all the meetings we're having, it's just easier to say Wednesdays are busy for me, and that's the only reason why.
Okay, so your obligation as trustees, those of you who are still going to be here, is obviously we would like you to vote on Wednesday, and you should be at the meeting, at the end of the meeting, so that you can vote for your officers. I mean, that's first choice, but that's not until 7:30 or 7:45. Anitris?
Oh, I don't have anything, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not doing too well with this hand signal stuff. I'll get it all down and then I'll be gone.
So is there another date anyone else is interested in?
Terry, how does that dovetail with your town responsibilities? You guys are Mondays, aren't you?
Mondays, and it's at 5 o'clock.
Okay,
Dan had a question.
I'm sorry.
Could we do the elections on the 3rd and then the following Wednesday be our meeting?
Friday?
The 3rd is,
I
I
don't
think,
think a
when
Friday would work well.
And I
No.
think they said the 3rd's going, that's when they're gonna have
Yeah, it's a
celebrate the
holiday.
4th.
Right.
Most people will leave and go out of town.
Our obligation is, for example, we don't do it on Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. Our obligation is to make it convenient for people.
If it was a normal Friday, yes, but it's
But
not.
if it's the first long weekend when camping is open, I'm guessing we would be here staring at each other. Probably you would be gone too.
Yeah,
So-
I'm leaving actually Sunday again
Oh, you are?
Mhm.
For how long?
till next Wednesday.
So how does the
Terry, what do
8th
you
look
think?
for you?
I mean, it was your presentation the last time. It sounds like we still have to do the date. The process is going to be as we have done. We're going to do alphabetical listings for the ballot. We'll obviously get the information into the hub and the penny saver, despite what we think we get for our money's worth from that. But we could certainly do the media stuff.
Right.
We're not going to get as many voters as the school district got because they had so many absentees. I mean,
Right.
1,400 votes or something. That was quite a few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every
just-
school district and every locality that's had voting all over the country that had absentee voting, excuse me, has just blossomed.
I'm sure it's all those crooked ballots that are going in.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just kidding.
And we're not set up to do that because we didn't ask for absentee registration, nor do we have all the addresses, and it'd be.
Oh, as I say, I watched the folks at the school district do that, and I would prefer not to.
Yeah, that
Well,
would be.
That was a problem, is no one had a list to go off of about all the legal voters. So, I mean, every school district had that.
Yeah.
And that's why the date was extended because, there was envelopes, there was time, there was lists. So no, we don't want that hassle, but I think if we advertise it enough.
Okay, so
If we do it on, that gives us if the stuff gets out tomorrow, the one thing we need from all the
candidates.
who are running, we need a biography, so we can publish that at least online. But if we do it on the 8th, that would give 2 weeks for advertising, and then we would have our regular meeting the following week, which would be the 3rd. And it's really kind of a fluke because July 1st happens to fall on.
I guess one of the advantages is this year, July is the month that has the 5 Wednesdays, so we're not really putting ourselves really far behind. So
How about, besides the biographies, can we do like what the school did, since everything's all Zoom, and have, people talk about themselves a little bit? I think it gave a little more personality to the candidates running. at least for the school. I don't know how anyone feels about the library, but it was nice to listen to people and, actually hear from them.
As long as we have the capability of doing it, I think it makes good sense, even if we don't have a pandemic.
Well, probably, yes. I'm sure Mike is in the other room nodding his head saying, yes, we can work this out.
Of course he is. Yes, he is, isn't he?
That's
He
a good
says
idea.
we can.
Okay.
So are we thinking the 8th for the voting, the 15th for the meeting? Correct?
Right, the 8th for the annual meeting and the 15th for your regular trustee meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Terry?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Are there I don't think there are other questions relative to that. I mean, the process, once we've decided when to do it, kind of works.
And we have the process that was passed at the February meeting.
Right.
With the adjustments from what you brought at the last meeting.
Right. So at 7 o'clock, the polls close. The election committee, using mask and social distancing, will tally the votes, and it'll be a special order, a special item on the agenda.
Yeah, it becomes a special order. You interrupt the meeting whenever they're done with their tally to report. Okay, are we comfortable with that?
Yes.
All right. Do you have enough information to make that into a motion? Megan? We're perfecting the motion here over here.
When she gets it, have her read it back to us.
You don't motion to move. So it's, set the meeting date. Set the date of the annual meeting at July 8th.
While you're discussing that, let me ask, do you want this ad to run in the penny saver for 2 weeks? Because I think it has to be in by like 11 o'clock tomorrow. I see Barb is online. She'll be happy to hear this. I'll call you, Barb. Do you want it to go in tomorrow for this coming weekend?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
And do you need it
Advertised as well.
repeated again for the weekend of the 4th of July?
Yeah. Just
Okay.
do those 2 weeks, and
2
that should be
weekends.
plenty.
Okay.
Have that. I think I have. I have the
Betty Sue.
authorization to unmute you.
On the hub too. It'll be with the hub, combined
I
with the
hadn't
hub.
thought about it.
We do the normal thing. The pre-COVID one was, and that's the one that says we don't have any write-in votes and we don't have any. Okay, so I guess you need to unmute.
I guess I
unmute
don't
yourself.
remember what the costs
Okay,
are,
so
Joyce.
this is Megan,
Oh,
and I just
okay.
want to read the motion as I have it.
Okay.
Thank you.
It currently says motion to set the date of the annual meeting to July 8th, 2020, with voting to run from noon until 7 p.m. in the format of the election protocol adopted at the February board meeting. Would you like any changes to that?
Did we want to include that the annual meeting would follow on the 15th?
Or our regular,
No, that's-
A
No, that
regular,
wouldn't be the right,
okay,
regular board meeting.
all right.
To be perfectly honest with you, I think I can just put that in the minutes of the notes from this one, just
Okay.
like we do. Sometimes we change in around the holidays.
Okay, thank you. Sounds good.
So do we need a motion on that?
Yeah, we need somebody to move what she just read.
I'll move.
Linda did,
I'll
Dan
second.
seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? So ordered. Thank you. Okay. Per our last meeting, I did not contact the attorney for a recommendation on the COVID-specific sick time, which can be paid or unpaid, but which has to be accounted for separately from our existing PTO. The conversation is, I think she's going to suggest that we do unpaid up to a certain amount that then goes away when COVID goes away. I mean, and it may never go away, but that it be accounted for separately. Otherwise, we have to rearrange the PTO to determine how much of that, we're back to where we were before. How much is sick time, how much is personal time, how much is vacation time. But I didn't ask her to format that formally because we were going to get information from other libraries, municipalities, and the like. There does not appear to be a lot in the commercial side. I'm on a lot of those, listservs. Were we successful in finding others? I also contacted Niagara and they said, oh yeah, we all have to do that, but nobody has yet. I don't want to say that they're waiting for Albion, but on a number of things, they've waited for Albion because we've paid the lawyer to do it and everybody else says, oh yeah, we can.
Yeah, that's true.
I checked a couple of different places, but one of the things I did in my research is they fall under different circumstances. Because as I was reading, if you have 1 to 10 employees and under a certain amount of income, you fall under one thing. If you have 10 to 99 employees and under a certain income, it's something else. If you have 10 to 99 employees and over $1 million in income, it's something else. And then over 99 employees, it's something else. Also, so basically, some of that stuff is kind of set by the state if you have a certain number of employees, I believe. And if you're a state employee, or I don't want to say a state employee, a
civil service employee in municipal employment somewhere.
Tax-paid employee. So the organizations that I look to basically are in different circumstances because they probably have more employees, but also their income is greater than ours. Ours is less than $500,000, and some of these places have 1.5 or $2 million because they have grants and things like that. So I did some research, but it wasn't very successful.
Linda, how about in your circles?
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
No one knows what. Everyone's afraid of what's going to come in the fall.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird. Some people are just like nothing's happened. Other people have cut off everything completely. It's just strange, really.
We are
I
in
don't know if
that.
anybody remembers, I got a communique from Greta back on May 15th that made mention of this, and then it had all of the little guidelines and things we had to abide by, similar to some of the things that Terry just mentioned. But that's what she said, she'd be willing to talk to us. But again, at $450 an hour, if we can figure it out from what they sent to us, we probably would be better off. Does anybody want this document sent to them again?
Whatever the state has sent out for employers, I think would be helpful. I think the hardest part is figuring out where we fall.
I think the advantage of the document that Betty Sue has been filtered once in a general format by the law firm. So they are not sending us information that would be applicable to a chemical manufacturer that's based in, that it would be similar to what we have.
Yes, there were the things that Terry talked about with the over this amount, under that amount, but it also came down to the fact that there are 3 reasons for doing this. One, if the employee is sick, if a family member is sick, so they're right there. They're right there in black and white. The thing you're going to have to figure out is where do we fall into this by numbers? And I don't see any reason we can't reach out and ask that question without getting into a whole lot of, because it's right, employers with between 5 and 99 must provide up to 40 hours. That's the one where we fall.
And a lot of that was different, just like the phases. It all depended on it all depended on your NICS code, what your
Yep.
business was listed as. And it was so hard to find information on libraries. You know, I'm in those codes all the time, and it's like, where is it? You know, and it was different. And then it depended on what type of library you were. And it's all over the place because this is new for everybody. So I think as things come up, they just keep changing and modifying as they go.
Currently, we are, it's right now it's a moot point because in the current guidelines, which of course could change in September or whenever, the current guidelines are, because we are pre-funded with tax dollars, we can't reduce anybody's hours. We can only voluntarily lay people off if they wanted to take the $600 federal spiff, that sort of thing. So there wasn't any sick time that was charged against anybody, whether you were home for COVID because you couldn't come to work, or you were home for COVID because you were quarantining yourself. So I don't want to make it so difficult that, as I say, I can certainly, on my way out the door, I can call Greta and say, give us an idea, get just something for us to talk about, and we can decide whether that's fair for us based on this community and our employees, or I think she told you in the memo that Betty Sue can share with you that leave time in a non-union situation, in a non-civil service situation, is 100% ours. We control it. So we could create the separate COVID leave, whether it's paid or unpaid, because that meets the requirements. Joyce?
You know, in thinking about the COVID situation and what we did at the beginning, where we continued to pay our employees their salaries, whether they were working or not working, should we, and now if we have a second wave of COVID and we're put in that situation again, and on top of that, because we're going to have to decide if the next wave is really bad, will we do the same thing we did in the first wave? Then to me, I look at these special hours that they're offering as like part of the Family Leave Act. And we can say, we'll pay 40 hours of COVID leave, cumulative 40 hours. However, if you need more, we will accept it as unpaid COVID leave, which could be fair, especially if we get into another round of really bad COVID. There's a little security for those people that can't come back to work even on a partial basis, and they would still be able to get some funding or not lose their job because they have to be out with a family member. I do think that we need to have some legal guidance with this as we structure this going forward, because not knowing if this is the last or the tail end of COVID, or if this is going to swing around again and we're going to be back to making a decision about PTO and all that stuff again. So I do think we need some legal guidance about this COVID leave. Hopefully they'll say to keep it separate and we can agree on an amount that's fair and then not injurious to the library or to the staff.
Joyce, I'm going to pick on you because you've had the experience. How long is a reasonable period to say if, for example, one of our employees goes start to finish from COVID to?
Weeks. Without a doubt, I would say 2 weeks.
Okay.
I would say 2 weeks. I mean, honestly, I needed the full 2 weeks. And then the rest after that is recuperation.
Dan,
which
how
if
long
you
is
were in an employment situation, would have made that really 4 weeks. You know, had that happened when you were in Washington, where you were expected to work your 12-hour shifts being a nurse manager, if you needed to recuperate, you'd have the 2 weeks of incubation and illness, and then 2 more weeks anyway of.
Well, when you consider that the going thing now is after 2 weeks, you're free to walk around, walk amongst the masses, you know, which makes you a little leery. But the medical community feels that after 2 weeks of, once you've been diagnosed with COVID, that after 2 weeks of isolation, you're okay to move about. So that's if you're one of those people who didn't get hospitalized. If you
Right.
get hospitalized, that to me is another issue. If you're the walking, the wounded, the 2 weeks is sufficient. And I think that's what we're looking at is, I would, if in the best of all possible world, I would think that not 40 hours, but 80 hours, which would be the 2 weeks that it would take for you to be in isolation and not working. And that then you may be able to come back to work, maybe on modified duty, but that you would be cleared, you know, of COVID
Right.
symptoms. But
Linda, did you have a comment?
I do. With the governor's new mandate, a lot of employers now are saying that if an employee travels and they travels to one of the hot spots, they come back, they're automatically quarantined for 2 weeks.
yes,
And a lot of employers are now saying those 2 weeks are your unpaid time, your personal time. And because you chose to take that risk, you have to find someone to fill in for your shifts. So you could have 3 staff members go off to Phoenix and Florida and California and come back. And by the governor's mandate, they have to be out 2 weeks. So what's going to happen in those 2 weeks? Will it be unpaid? Will it be under the state mandate? I mean, that's a whole other factor to put in there.
Dan?
Say as far as like Linda was saying, if they travel, that's on them. Then if they know the restrictions right now and what the governor's put on, if they're willing to travel, then they're going to go unpaid because it's their own fault. Now, if they're in a grocery store or they're somewhere local doing what they got to do and come down with COVID, that's a whole different story. Then that's where we would step in and help them out.
right.
And as far as like Joyce was saying, the 2 weeks, just like yourself, I seen my sister, the 2 weeks she was fine. Now my mom was on the ventilator for 9 days. She still has a physical therapist coming in to help her with walking. And she was in the hospital first week of May. So we're talking months down the road, and she still got a therapist coming.
Yes.
And she ended up with a COVID rash. She ended up with all that. I mean, she's getting everything that they're saying that is possible. And, you know, she's still not fully recovered. She's not even close to being able to say, I can go back to work right now.
Yes.
So it's more case to case.
Yes. And see,
Okay.
someone like that would get after they use up their 40 or 80 hours, whatever we decide, they would have the extended family leave, you know, to take care of themselves or to take care of a loved one as it dictates with, you know, it wouldn't be with pay, but they'd have job security.
Okay. All right. So now it's time for me to tabulate this and send it to the attorney and say, take a look at what, because she wrote our PTO policy. So it's not like this is a cold thing. And my guess is this, we're not the only people to have the question. So, and I'm
We'll
looking
charge for
for
answers.
a summary. I mean, I don't want a whole white paper because I don't want to pay for that. But a summary of what our options are. Choose this, choose this, choose this, or a summary, and this is my recommendation based on my experience with your organization.
I'd go with the latter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I want to get the most value out of it, and it's not like this is an attorney that we're just calling up cold, who's not familiar with, I mean, the personnel issues that we've had in the past and all that sort of stuff. So, okay, I will do that. I will do that. And if in your networking doing other things, you happen to find you're having lunch in downtown Rochester with somebody who says, oh, we found what we want to do with the governor's COVID sick leave. You can certainly share that information with Betty Sue or with everybody else. I mean, whatever you need to do.
Well, I'm going to break in for just a second because I know that you've only seen the side of my face, which may be better than the front of it. But I was going through Greta's old emails while you were talking, and I'm going to forward to you a comment she sent when I first reached out to her on this before. So you'll just have it to know what questions you want, because Kevin, I assume you're going to reach out to Greta?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sending this so that people can react to it to you before that takes place.
Okay. All right. Actually, I had a long soliloquy that I was going to read you about, where we came from with this library and where we've been, and the fact that we continue to be that library of which everyone else is so jealous. I mean, it's a beautiful facility. We have community support. We have not only money in the bank, we have a $400,000 line of credit. There are a lot of businesses that I do business with that would kill for a $400,000 line of credit. We've been very lucky, fortuitous, however you want to put it, that the Hoags have continued to make payments that have allowed us to almost make our mortgage go away. And even on the schedule that we're now, if the stock market hit them in a particular way and it's another year before they do something or never again, we're still only 4 or 5 years away from paying the mortgage totally off. That's not a bad thing. Our circulation numbers are up, but I think more importantly, the number of people that come through the doors are up. Some of them are folks that maybe the staff doesn't want to see. They're dirty, and sometimes they smell, and sometimes they represent a population that you don't normally think of in the library, and yet those are the people that this library should embrace, because that's what this community needs. So as I leave after my 12 years here and the construction, I just want to say, don't screw it up, folks. We're doing pretty well. And then one item that I forgot to bring up before that was a question. And it was a question that a couple of people had, and they even had yesterday. And it's relative to the air handling system in the building. Folks are real concerned about how often do we change the air. We filter the air. We have chosen not to irradiate the air. We can put ultraviolet units in for $25,000 or $30,000 that literally zap the air as it goes through. However, that's not as effective as it might be. The building is about 14,000 square feet. So more or less, we have about 140,000 cubic feet. That's more or less the size of the high school gym. We pump out 8,000 cubic feet a minute through the fan units here. So we change the air in this building every 17 minutes. Of that air that we pump around at 8,000 cubic feet, 1/3 of it is outside air. Now, that's not the most efficient way to do it. If I was going to try to cheapen down the air conditioning, for example, it's just like it is in your car. If you press the recirculation button, so all it does is chill the air that's in there, it makes it much colder, much faster. But for being an environment in which to work or an environment in which to visit, you do want that balance of the fresh air on there. So that, I mean, I want you to know that we don't chisel out on that. We do when the weather is pleasant and the humidity is tolerable. That's someplace below 40%. But we shut the air handlers off and open the windows, because with the clerestory windows up on top and the ground level windows, we actually get a draft. That's the way it was designed to work. So it doesn't always work that way, and we are concerned about the humidity in the building, because I mean it's a big bunch of books. If you let them get damp, it's really difficult to control it after that. So that was something I was supposed to tell you before. I was supposed to sign off with my send off and say don't screw it up. But are there any other items for business tonight?
Just to add on to that, because my son-in-law tends to read a lot about this, and he said that what they're finding with air handling systems, it's when the air blows by you and one of the people's infected, and then it's kind of like a wind stream. It blows directly at those people. They've done studies. People to the left and to the right don't get it, but the people in front do. And the way our system is set up, I think it's a fairly safe system. Plus, with what Kevin said, where it's exchanging a third of it all the time. I see Charlene's still on. Charlene, I just want to let you know, they just announced today that they think transmission through food and that kind of thing is 0 chance. So you can stop Lysoling everything. which I admit I was doing too. I mean, we were washing everything. I mean, going shopping was like, we were the Beverly Hillbillies and we went out once a month, and it was
Let me
sad.
just go around the table and make sure we haven't missed anything. Dan?
I'm good.
Terry? Linda?
I just want to say thank you, Kevin, for your years of service, and it's a lot of time and effort put into this, and obviously it shows in everything you just said. We have a stellar building. We have remarkable staff, and I have yet to find someone in this community who can say a bad thing about the library, all of the facilities in general. So, thank you. Thank you to you, to Betty Sue, to the staff. It's not one person. We all know that. It is a group effort. And thanks.
I think particularly in the last couple of years, and I've been pretty rough on the school district. The school district has lost that place, and I'm sure they'll get it back, of being the community focus point. And during that period where it was no longer the community focus point, we couldn't cover everything, but we stepped up when we made the facility available to all kinds of organizations, groups and organizations. We tried to collaborate with and co-sponsor things. I think that's part of being that anchor in the community. Anitris, anything for the good of the order?
No, I'm good, but I agree with what Linda said. She just took the words out of my mouth. So thank you very much.
Joyce?
I want to echo what Linda said. And I realize, Kevin, I know I came late to the party, but I still like to dance. But I do want to say there's no doubt how much you care for and love the library. And I just want you to remember that the people that are running for the library and that are still on the library, they love it too. And it's like my mom always says, I love all my kids the same. Well, I'm telling you, being one of 10, I beg to differ. You know what I mean? Because each one of us have different needs. And out of that need, we create action. But most people, when you love something, you never try to go out and hurt the thing that you love. And I want you to know that all of us here today, all of us that will be here in the future, we love this library. We loved it when it was Swan, and we love it when it's Hoag. I know I do. And I don't think there's anyone in this room that doesn't love this library. And I appreciate how much you have cared for it and nurtured it. And be assured, we're going to take care of her.
I'm just around the corner, so I'll know if you don't. Interesting commentary. There's a plaque on one of the pillars that faces the circulation desk, and it's the trustees who were here when we built the library. And I am the last one because people move on to different things. And there are people who are builders, and there are people who are operators, and there are people who are fundraisers, and they all did their part. And it's really neat that we have continued to provide the stellar programming and move toward that peak, that pinnacle of library operation as we have changed things. We've all been involved in volunteer boards where very often that first board disappears for attrition, or they die or whatever the story is, and that second generation doesn't get it. I think I'm very lucky to be able to say this generation gets it. Gloria.
Yeah.
I have two things I would like to say. The first is, at the annual meeting that we're going to have, and I'm going to ask you this, Kevin, they always read the minutes from the last annual meeting.
Yep.
And I don't know if we have minutes. I know it was a question in regards to the minutes, from the last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering how that's going to be handled. Because they're not posted. The minutes are not posted from the last annual meeting. And it did come up in discussion. I forgot what was decided, but I think it might be an issue that you might want to look into as far as the minutes. I'm just bringing that up.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the second thing I would like to say is that this board is a very diverse board, and we all have our differences, and that's okay, because that's what makes the world go round. And I would like to say, Kevin, believe it or not, you will be missed. Believe it or not, you have brought a lot to this board, and people can actually learn from you. And I would like to say, even though you and I had disagreed, but not really too much, that I do appreciate you and what you have done for this board. And I just want you to know that. I was talking about you to my husband a couple of weeks ago. I said, sort of bittersweet. I said, because like Joyce said, you're a family. And when you're a family, people are going to disagree. But just because you disagree, it doesn't mean that you still can't move on. And I just want to say that you will be missed.
Well, thank you. Debbie?
Well, I'm going to jump on what everybody else has said, but I'm pretty brand new, and I remember walking out of the first meeting thinking, I can't even imagine the amount of information that is in your brain, because it just, I don't remember Tuesday, and you've got stuff from 12 years. So I really appreciate the amount of knowledge and the passion and compassion that you bring to the library. So you can add my "we'll miss you" to everyone else's.
Well, thank you. Okay, so your upcoming dates are, the annual meeting is going to be on July 8th. I'm sorry, Joyce?
Got Terry.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did I do that? Terry?
Well,
Anything we missed?
no, there are times when Kevin and I over the last 8 years have disagreed, but that's okay. Good decisions come out of disagreement.
Right.
If we're all yes men, you have crappy decisions. We see that right now in our federal government. The other thing is, one other thing is, Joyce, X always told me he was the favorite.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
X is her not youngest brother, but a younger brother, Xavier, who I think is in California now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joyce, your mom loved you all the same, not just at the same time.
Don't make me roll my eyes at that one.
Okay, so the annual meeting, which I will chair, will be July 8th. We'll open at 12 noon with the little spiel that we do, and the voting, which Terry pointed out the friends are going to help with. General meeting will be at 7 o'clock. Remember, please, that the reorganizational meeting, it's a little odd, immediately follows the annual meeting. So those folks that are elected have to be there to be part of the election of your officers for the next year. And then your regular trustee meeting for July will be on the 15th. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I want to check who's going to make sure that all of our candidates get their get a bio in, and also so that Mike can do a little video each.
I will stop and see Elizabeth and Mike tomorrow and get them tasked on that, because Betty Sue already has some stuff to do. But that will take care of, if she and Barb can do the penny saver and the hub ad, and I'll get these other guys on their task. Anything else for the good of the order? Dan?
For Betty Sue real quick.
What?
Question for you. That
Yes.
that thing that came in from the mayor, did you want to tell the other
Oh,
board?
Kevin's got it.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Because
you.
I didn't know. Yeah, because I
I
didn't know
gave
if
it to him to bring in to explain away, Kevin.
When we were going to have our big soiree to celebrate the library anniversary, Steve Hawley's office got an assembly resolution which has a little bit of the history and celebrating our anniversary, and even has the original contractor for the Swan building down the street. So this will go someplace out in front where people can see it.
Yes, I would love input on where you'd like it located.
Would it be possible to get a picture of that and put it online for now?
Absolutely.
With a
Sure.
blurb?
Yep.
You know, because
I'll have a look.
that's something we should celebrate, that, you know, because not a lot of people are coming in, it still should be recognized. And would it be
Absolutely.
possible for us to write a thank you as a board?
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
So I guess I will be responsible for bringing that around when I will chase you each down to do this evaluation so that the perfected copy has everybody's ink signature on it.
Okay.
So
Okay,
I'll just have 2 folders.
thank you.
Last chance. Okay, whose turn is it to move that we adjourn?
I move that we adjourn. Gloria.
It was Gloria beat you that time. So
That's right.
Gloria moved it and it was unanimously seconded that we adjourn our meeting at 8:20. Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you who are tracking the Zoom, the copy of this meeting will be on the website sometime in the future.
Be safe, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Night.
Good night.